Welcome Eddie Crouch to discuss the recent increase in targets with the NHS and how to get more performance basically with less staff, a challenge a lot of people are facing. Eddie, tell me what's been going on recently, and let's talk first of all about the increase in targets.
As people know, the letter that came through at the just before Christmas, it certainly wasn't a happy Christmas for the dental profession in England, seeing that the fact that there was a 20% increase in the target that was expected from them at the time when people were, experiencing the full blast of the new wave of Omicron and the effects that was having on their appointment book and their staffing levels. I mean, it just seemed a completely unexplained decision, really, from NHS England to actually push dental practices to a target that, 2/3 of practices were getting nowhere near that target before they raised it. I don't know why they think, hitting the profession, I think, with a stick really at the moment, rather than the support other areas of the health service are getting, is the way forward to actually encourage more dentists to stay in the NHS. It's a ridiculous thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. It's 85% expectation, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Okay, a third of practices were able to do that before they raised the thresholds that they were expecting, but that meant 2/3 of practices weren't, and this is a significant problem because not only have they done that, they've also taken away the threshold at the lower level. So it means that it will be a financial hit for practices who don't achieve it. And from what I'm hearing, many practices are getting absolutely nowhere near it in the first week or so of going back after Christmas. A recent survey in the East Midlands showed that about 2/3 of practices had, at least one member of staff that was off, either with the virus or was self-isolating. And if you haven't got a dental nurse, it doesn't matter whether your dentist is okay. If you haven't got the support within the practice to actually deliver patient care, you certainly got no chance of actually getting anywhere near these 85% targets. And, our headline from the British Dental Association was that this was the wrong target at the wrong time, and it's setting up practices to fail.
Yeah, I agree. Because, let's talk a little about the staffing crisis. I mean, it's ever present and it's growing. And of course, there's people that cannot come into work through COVID with the restrictions. We had something in our office today. Somebody got a text in the middle of a meeing, someone they've been in contact with. Everyone had to stopping testing. It's a constant thing. Obviously, in order to remain in employment, the support staff, there are anti-vaxxers out there. What kind of impact have you seen from that? Because obviously those that are not prepared to have the vaccination, they're no longer welcome in the surgery, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a problem with the term anti-vaxxers because I think that there are a lot of people in the profession who are concerned about the vaccine and about the rapid implementation of the vaccine. I'm not sure they're anti-vaxxers. They're just concerned about being compelled to actually have the vaccination to continue to work within the NHS. And our survey that we carried out with the profession in early December led to some headlines where we believe about 10% of the workforce out there in general dental practice are hesitant about having the vaccine. Now, whether as we get nearer to the time that you have to be vaccinated to continue to work in the NHS, more and more people will get vaccinated, I'm not sure because, you saw recently a conversation even just last Friday with the Secretary of State and the consultant anaesthetist, at one of the major hospitals in London. People have really got very, very strong opinions on this, and many people wanted the BDA to actually do more. I think what we've done is voice the concern that we have workforce issues. Many members of staff have not been able to maintain working in the PPE levels that we were working in since the beginning of the pandemic. And, a lot of practices are reporting they're losing staff, ancillary staff and dental nurse support, because people are not happy working in that level of PPE. And if you're going to lose even more because of the fact of a compulsory vaccination declaration by the Secretary of State, the workforce issue is going to be catastrophic. The BDA position has been that we fully support vaccination. I've been vaccinated. I've had my booster. If I'm asked to go for another one, I'll go. I think most people are quite happy to do that, but there is a significant number of the profession that don't want to be vaccinated and don't want to be compelled to be vaccinated, and that will inevitably have an impact not only on workforce but patient care, because if we haven't got the workforce to deliver the care, the issue about access to NHS dental services or all dental services has been really quite difficult. I've seen a survey that's coming out from one of the corporates that's saying that the waiting time for actually getting into to have private dental treatment is beginning to increase. We are in a situation where compulsory vaccination will have a detrimental effect. Whether I think people who refuse to become vaccinated are doing the right thing or not, it's inevitable. It's going to have an effect.
Yeah. Now, obviously, I realise that you're not psychic, Eddie, but what do you think NHS England are going to do?
Well, the worrying thing in the letter that came out to dentists before Christmas was not only the 85% target, but the other mention of the fact that from April, NHS dental practices should get prepared to go back to a UDA contract of 100%. Now, we know the UDA contract was a flawed contract and there has been a flawed contract. But that has also worried a huge amount of the profession, thinking that we're returning to normality. I don't know what they can predict that anyone else can't see, but in my opinion, the 1st of April is not going to see the end of the pandemic. But for NHS England, it seems to be the end of any support that they want to give to dental practice. And a lot of practices have been seriously considering their long-term future in the NHS. I speak to all the companies that assist practices to go from the NHS into private systems. They tell me they have waiting lists to go and see people at the moment because of the volume of interest in that. The actions that are there at the moment by NHS England just seem to be the best advertising ever for people like Denplan and Practice Plan, because it looks to me as though the NHS are beginning to pull up the drawbridge of any support that they're giving to the profession.
So, Eddie, just let's briefly discuss clawback and breach notices.
Well, we know how bad clawback was. Before the pandemic, it was ever increasing. Millions and millions of pounds increase year on year because people found it harder and harder and harder to actually deliver UDA targets. Inevitably, if you set a target where 2/3 of the profession were not hitting it before they raised it 20%, clawback is going to be a major issue. Many practices rely not only on their NHS income but their private income to support them, and that's taken a hit, as we know, throughout the pandemic. Many practices are very vulnerable at the moment, and if you start taking huge amounts of money back in clawback from practices, the only thing you can see is the fact that many of these practices will actually go to the wall or close, or corporates will shut down practices that are just completely unviable. The end of the financial year has obviously taken a considerable amount of time to actually. I mean, practices surely were clawed back, but they were, the end of the financial year is when clawback actually starts. Yes. And so we won't know really until the summer of next year what volume of clawback will be there, because this final 3 months will inevitably, I suspect, mean that many practices don't deliver on their target and they will face clawback. But it will be the summer once you've actually had the end of the financial year and all the totting up that the NHS will do. It's going to be incredibly complex because we've had 3 different targets within this year, and they've also introduced a scheme where they will allow excess delivery in the final quarter of the year to be offset against any targets that you haven't hit previously. But I don't see that that's going to be possible for an awful lot of practices. What I see is, levels of clawback next summer, which are far, far worse than last summer because the targets were more achievable in the previous 12 months.
So a busy time, as always, for you. What's your main focus sort of at the moment with regards to addressing this and obviously lobbying on behalf of members?
We're getting, as usual, plenty of press interest in dentistry. It's been phenomenal, the press interest throughout the pandemic, and that continues. I had an article yesterday in the Sunday Express. I understand the BBC are very interested in the fact that about 1,000 dentists left the NHS performers list in England last year, and I can only see that increasing with what they're doing at the moment. We are focusing on lobbying. Sean Charwood wrote a letter to NHS England, had a meeting last Thursday where it doesn't appear that they are for turning really on this target. What they're saying is that they're going to make it easier for practices to actually declare specific difficult circumstances that they're having. But they said in the letter that if practices were outliers in comparison to the other practices in the area, then they would listen to those concerns. My problem, or the problem I am hearing about, is that it's not you're not an outlier as a practice if you've got all these issues. You are the norm, and every single practice is having problems with staffing issues, with patients cancelling at last minute. The idea that you can suddenly fill an appointment book that's cancelled on the day is an idea that's been generated from people who just don't understand what dental practice is all about.
Well, obviously a concerning prognosis. A lot of people will resonate with everything that you've said today. Thank you very much for your time. It's very interesting to get an up-to-the-moment assessment of the situation, Eddie. Thank you, Eddie.
Take care.
Bye-bye.